Their great cities faded away. And in their place came new life.
You've poured over 40 hours into this game.
Oh my god, yes.
What's it all about?
Oh, it's so great. So you're Aloy in a post-apocalyptic world filled with mechanical animals, tribes who are scattered throughout the land, and this mysterious corruption which is turning all these robotic machines into kind of crazed versions of themselves. So it means they're attacking everyone they see, they're generally a lot stronger and terrifying, and the disease is only spreading. So, as Aloy, you're set to go and find out the source and stop it.
Okay, and it is Aloy, isn't it? The game is very clear about
Aloy,
pointing
not
that out.
Alloy.
No.
Aloy. Very important distinction to make.
Okay, so in terms of gameplay, it is a giant open world, more comparative to things like Skyrim and The Witcher.
Oh, definitely. Like, it is absolutely massive. There's so much to do as well. So you have main quests, and then you've got side quests, errands, just quick jobs to run. There are tall necks to climb up of, so you can discover more locations across the map. There are these cauldrons, which are like big, really high-level dungeons where you can fight tons of like robotic machines in. There's hunting challenges, so if you don't like combat, you can just test out your skill with a bow and arrow and try and hunt down as many animals in like a set time period as you want.
Okay.
Or you can take out bandit camps and just decide that you want to cleanse the earth of some horrible humans instead of fighting actual robots. A lot of the fun in Horizon comes from fighting giant robotic animals, because there is nothing like the satisfaction when you take down like a terrifying snapmaw, which is a really big robotic crocodile. Nothing matches up to the feeling that you get when you triumph over something that has been terrifying you from a distance for so long. But yeah, killing the robotic machines also gets you resources which you'll need to use for crafting arrows, upgrades to your resources and weapons packs and things like that, and collecting these things called shards, which are like the currency that Horizon Zero Dawn uses. So if you wanted to, you don't have to fight animals, but you're going to be at a significant disadvantage if you don't. Also, you won't be able to progress in the story at all, because funnily enough, it is hinged around killing robots.
Right. So all the main missions you get are basically go and find these robots and kill them?
No, not necessarily, actually. There are some where you're sent to investigate scenes. So with your focus, which is this nifty little device Aloy has in her ear, it kind of scans the environment around you and picks up things that are important. You're sent to locations where you have to scan and find out like where a person has disappeared off to, the story of what happened to this missing group. You have to follow tracks. So a lot of it, well, not a lot of it, but most of it is investigating at points. So you're not simply sent off to go and kill like 5 watchers or whatever. A lot of it is story-based, tracking and kind of discovering the quest for yourself rather than just being given fetch quests by someone.
Because aside from these robots that are in the world, there's also an old civilization, a lot of like mystery stuff to discover.
Yes! Oh, I love the old civilization so much. So obviously it's hinged on the fact that the world as we know it is now gone. Something awful happened and now there are ruins of apartment buildings, planes, war machines everywhere across the world. And part of Aloy's story is figuring out what the hell happened. Obviously it's linked to the robots somehow, but you don't really know the details until you get further on in the story. But this old civilization isn't an excuse for the game setup. It's not just put there for you to be like, okay, I understand why these robots are here. It's inherently linked to the story. So when you're travelling around, you find like audio logs which tell the stories of what happened before and the kind of the panic and desperation of the falling of the old world. You also find text logs which give you some very much needed context and backstory for like all the corporations that are around then. And one of the best bits actually that I really like is when you're walking around metal ruins, which are just old cities basically that fall into disrepair, you can find bits of ancient debris, and in them they have these like names of things that we have now, but they've completely got the wrong end of the stick about what they actually are. So you pick up a pair of keys or a pacemaker and they'll say, oh, the pair of keys, that's some ancient chimes from way back when, or the pacemaker is an ancient amulet. And like it's a really small thing, but just seeing those kind of humorous descriptions really makes a difference. It kind of adds a light-hearted touch to what otherwise is a really kind of twisted story about how we messed up the world and we suffered for it.
All right, well, that sounds great. Also, what is great is fighting the animals.
Oh my god, yes.
But it's not just like a simple go and smash it with a stick. There's tactics for different ones that you meet along the way.
Absolutely. If you don't diversify your combat range and kind of switch out armors every now and again, you're going to die so quickly. Which, admittedly, happened to me a lot at the beginning because I was very stubborn that I wanted to stay with stealth. So yeah, each monster requires a different outlook. Although you can stealthily take down a Watcher or a Strider, which are like low-level beasts, if you try and stealthily take down a Thunderjaw, which is that massive T-Rex you so hilariously mentioned at the beginning of the video, you're going to just get trampled on and die. So you get once you've found a beast in the wild, you can scan it with your focus, which I mentioned before, and it highlights the weaknesses, its vulnerabilities, and also its strengths. With some of the monsters, you can even like power off some of its components, so you can shoot off the machine gun and use it against the bot. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Like, you really have to change exactly what you do to try and kill all the monsters. One set approach is not going to work.
And what are the actual weapons you get? Like, so you've got your bow. Do you get guns at all?
Only if you catapult them off the back of a really big powered monster.
Right.
You have a sling, which you can use to fire bombs and stuff, which will create area of effects and generally make life a misery for your enemies, which is fab. You also have what's called a sharpshooter bow, which is like a more higher powered version of your ordinary bow, which you use for precision shots. You can equip it with armor blasting arrows, so it will get rid of all the armor on the people that you're fighting and the robots too. There are also fantastic things like the tripcaster, which you'll use to set up a tripwire between 2 points, which you can then lure your enemies into and electrocute them or set them on fire, which is super fun to watch.
Okay, so that's the monsters taken care of, but also in the world there are different tribes that you have to do missions for and interact with as well, right?
Yep, indeed. So there are 4 of them. There's you, the Nora, which are kind of hunters, trackers, very much in with the wilderness types. They live in a matriarchal society which hasn't been kind to Aloy because she's motherless, and motherless in a matriarchal society, not a good mix. There are also the Karja, which are like these proud, very industrious folk, but in the past they've used slave labour. So they're just coming out of that period now, which has created a lot of tension in their community and also the wider outreach in the area. Because understandably, there are some people who are quite invested in the slave trade. Who would have thought it? As well as then there are the Banuk, which are these mystical shaman-like tribes who see the machines as kind of spirits, so they'll try and sing to them and understand them from a much more pacifist point of view, which is all very well when you're in your little tent in the middle of nowhere, but when you're in the wilderness you kind of have to shoot them in the face. And then there are my personal favourites, who are the Oseram. They're like these really industrious, like the Karja, but they're engineers, so they build stuff. They dismantle machines to build cool stuff out of them. Very Nordic, they really don't care what they say, and if you get offended by it, if this were a fantasy world, they'd definitely be the dwarves.
Right.
But yeah, they're absolutely awesome.
So it sounds like there's loads to do.
Oh god,
and
yes.
Obviously there's different approaches you can take. You can take stealth, or you can take straight in there with the action. You've obviously really enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely.
What would you say in terms of score are we putting on it?
Oh, certainly 4.5 out of 5. It's a fantastically created world. There's just so much to do, and you can pretty much mix and match to fit how you want to play it. If you don't want to do the main storyline, there's quests which are equally as narratively interesting, and the world itself just looks plain pretty. Like, it's stunning. Aloy's hair was enough to send me into raptures for the first 5 minutes of the game, but you can pretty much look across the landscape, see something, and then go and figure out what the hell it is. There's just so much to do, and it makes Horizon Zero Dawn an absolutely fantastic game.
I was going to say maybe demonstrate photo mode a little bit as well.
Wait, we have photo mode?
Well, yeah.
Do we? You mean this?
Yeah, that thing.
Wow.
Well, we don't need to do it now.
I'm just doing it now.
Okay.
It's too late for that. So yeah, photo mode. It's basically a free cam, but it's tied to the radius of Aloy. So she doesn't have to be in the shot always. You can just, take a shot of this, for instance.
Yeah.
You can depth of your field of view, so you can go close up, so you can do a little bit more long distance ones, and then you can adjust your roll if you
make it more
like
dynamic.
To.
Yeah.
I could hide Aloy or not. I can change depth of field, which is fun. You
Yeah.
can see that. And then you can change the aperture as well, so how strongly you want the depth of field to be. What else can I do? Let me just... brightness, obviously. So I can do that. Overexpose or underexpose. I can colorize it, make it more vibrant. Black and white, sepia, blue, warm glow, pink, whatever.
Right, all the Instagram photo filters, so to speak.
Intensity of it, obviously. I can change the time of day.
Now this is hardcore. Look at this. Oh wow.
So you see the sun glaring in over there. It just hurts your eyes almost. It's nice, right? The shadows popping in. Wait, let me just go back and see a little bit of a sunset over here. You can see the shadows on there as well. You can put borders in there. So
Oh look, it's like
the
the stream was earlier.
Ouch.
I'm sorry.
And then we have hearts because,
Oh, nice.
why not? Put a logo in there if you want to put a logo in there.
I heard they originally they wanted
And you
to.
can put a vignette in there as well.
Oh, nice.
See? So
Yeah.
How big you want the vignette, how strong you want the vignette. So yeah, there's options. And crane up, crane down, hide the UI, and if I go back, it will be evening again.
There are 9 weapons you can use to bring them down. A weapon wheel lets you customize a loadout and switch between up to a dozen ammo types instantly. A few weapons are indispensable, like the immobilizing rope caster, but each caters to a specific playstyle. If you like to get in close, there's the Tear Blaster to remove armor, and the Rattler to spit out elemental damage. If you prefer to stay in the shadows, there's the Trip Caster, and 3 types of traps you can put in a target's path. We like to stay mobile, using one arrow type on humans, another on machines, and another for the purpose of knocking off equipment.
Get explosive with fire arrows. There's a reason why tech gadgets and flames don't mix. Aloy's weapons are all cool hybrids of simple and advanced technologies, but I most enjoyed the fire arrows. One of my favorite combat moments during the preview was stumbling on a pack of grazers and targeting their antlers with the burning ammo. Waves of explosions, always super satisfying.
There are weapon combos that are more devastating than others, but it's fun to experiment, and you can place mods on some weapons to adjust their stats. Fights can either end quickly or drag on, depending on your weapon selection and accuracy. You have an ability on a cooldown that slows combat when you zoom in, helping you place 1 or 2 arrows where you want. It's rewarding to get familiar with each machine and become more efficient in dismantling it. It's the little moments within a battle that really shine, whether it's watching a machine get enraged when a key component blasts off, taking a piece of their own weaponry and using it against them, or cracking open giant canisters of flammable liquid. The real reason to finish side quests is to gather as much experience as possible and gain access to Aloy's menu of abilities and weapons. While there are present-day critters still around, like boar and rabbits to skin for potion ingredients and capacity upgrades, most of the land between villages is full of hostile machines. Hunting these metal beasts makes up the most of Horizon Zero Dawn. It turns out that this is a challenging and enjoyable thing to do. Each monster has an entry in your notebook where you collect research, and map markers track where they can be found. You can scan them to reveal elemental weaknesses and highlight pressure points. There are 24 different types of machines, excluding elemental variants and the wicked corrupted versions, so you encounter new threats at a nice pace.
Horizon is massive. I spent about an hour ignoring all the quests and just wandering around the entire eastern side of the map. It took about a whole day of in-game time. And that was only about a third of the entire game world. There's loads more that I didn't get to see. If you want to be efficient about transportation, then use Aloy's Override ability to hitch a ride from the local wildlife. It's a much faster way to cover ground, or to avoid an aggressive watcher. Your mount will also fight by your side, and it has a melee attack that you can control while you're riding. But it does have limited health, so don't get too attached to your first pet. It won't be around forever. As you get more powerful, you'll be able to hack more types of machines. Personally, I'm looking forward to riding a robo-reindeer. Ride a tallneck. You've probably watched this exchange happen in the official trailers already. It's still really, really cool to do it yourself. Sadly, you can't use the tallneck as a mount, but that's not to say they aren't useful. Once you've hopped up onto the Millennium Falcon-style head and overridden the machine, you'll gain more visibility on your map, and show some points of interest to investigate. These massive contraptions show up as icons on your compass, so it's not hard to quickly open up big chunks of the map to explore.
Horizon Zero Dawn is all about meeting and destroying robot beasts. Okay, there might be other stuff, like a forgotten civilization, and tribes, and resource gathering, and a huge open world, but mostly it's robot beasts. There's 23 to find in total, and we're about to show you every single one of them and tell you the best way to turn them into spare parts. I'm Zoe from GamesRadar Plus, and welcome to our Horizon Zero Dawn Robot Takedown Guide, starting with Watchers. Watcher. The first creature in the game which will knock you out if it gets half a chance, Watchers are most vulnerable to being shot in the eye. Funny that. A couple of well-placed arrows in the ocular orifice will take them down in no time. Or you can get close and stealthily whack them with a spear, if you have the silent strike ability. Just watch out for their leaping attack and the flaming laser balls they fire from their eye. Plus, they'll alert every machine nearby when they see you. Take them out quickly and without causing a fuss, if you can. Strider. Along with Watchers, Striders are some of the first enemies you'll encounter, and they're pretty easy to deal with, as long as you don't let yourself get too cornered. Either get in close and hack them once you learn the override ability, or use a fire arrow on the blaze canister on its backside to take it out, along with any nearby enemies, in a huge explosion. Grazer. Similar to giant reindeers, these would-be herbivores are about as easy to take down as a Strider. Lure them close with a whistle from the tall grass, then silently strike them to take them down in one hit. Or, if you don't mind running the risk of making an entire herd of them scatter, aim for the blaze canisters on their haunches. Fire at their antlers to disable their ramming attack if they look like they're about to charge. Longleg. These big, ostrich-like bots will kick your butt if you don't know how to deal with them, as they can stun you with their powerful sonic blast and call for reinforcements, if you don't take them out fast enough. Use your shock weaponry to make short work of them, and use your armor-piercing arrows to take out the antenna bits of their head if you want to be extra careful. Aim for the lung sacs on their chest to cause the most damage and disable their sonic attack, or fire at the blue canisters on their haunches. Sawtooth. The Sawtooth is the first real big boss fight you'll come across in the game, but once you get a few levels under your belt, you'll be able to take them out easily. They have a blaze canister like other robots, but this one keeps it on its underbelly, so you'll need to use your rope caster to pin it down to reach it. Or simply pelt it with fire arrows until it's good and toasty, then lay into it with your armor-piercing bolts. Or you could prepare the area beforehand with tripwires and traps to make short work of the feline machine. Charger. Chargers, they charge at you. They're like big rams, and when alerted, they'll speed towards the closest attacker nearby. Treat them like more aggressive broadhorns and aim for the horns and the blaze canister on its hind legs. Stalker. Not nearly as creepy as their human counterparts, Stalkers are ambushing machines. They can literally turn invisible. Fun. Watch for the telltale water-like sheen in the bushes and fire off a couple of tear blast arrows to disable their invisibility. These critters move fast, so while you're busy rolling and putting some distance between you and them, aim for their yellow section in their haunches to cause the most damage. They throw themselves sideways when they leap, so don't stop moving just because they've landed. They also spew out mines. Yay! Keep an eye on the ground for any red beams of light whilst you're running around. Glinthawk. The Glinthawk is a majestic beast, soaring high above the land and pelting you with deadly snowballs from above. Luckily for you, it's weak against fire, so use whatever flame abilities you have to take them out. They're also much easier to deal with once they're grounded, so use your rope caster a few times on it to ensnare them, and rush in for a critical hit or some free shots from your bow and arrows. Watch out for their swooping attacks though. It's worth investing in a long roll perk to get out of the way fast, and aim for their chest to disable their frost attack or their wings to ground them quickly. Corruptor. Kill it with fire! Corruptors are vulnerable to the stuff, so your priority should be fire arrows. Surprise, surprise. A giant cylinder atop of their metal body spews out grenades, and taking it out is the best way to minimise grief for yourself later on in battle. Keep dodging and rolling, and watch out for its rock-throwing attack. Hit its tail to disable this pesky trick. It'll jump up high and try to land on you, so when you've baited it, get ready to fire off a flurry of arrows once it's grounded. A good trick is to set a trap where you are, and then roll away at the last second so it triggers a beautiful explosion. Oh, and obviously don't let it land on you. Ravager. Ravagers are essentially deadlier versions of the Scrappers. They've got super fast close range attack and a cannon mounted on the side to kill you from afar. They're weak to a variety of abilities. Fire on the body, ice on the freeze canister on their stomach, shock on the power cell on its back, and piercing on the cannon itself. Fun fact, if you shoot off its cannon, you can pick it up and use it yourself. Handy in a pinch. Snapmaw. Massive, angry crocodiles that always move in packs of at least 2, your first priority should be aiming at them from a distance as they can get up close surprisingly fast. First, and this is critical, use a bunch of tear blast arrows to blow off their armour, because if you don't, you won't stand a chance against them. Seeing as they have a frost attack, they're vulnerable to fire, but if you use some precision arrows to aim for the glands underneath their head, they'll lift their head up before firing frost at you, you can cause a snowy explosion, rendering them frostbitten and susceptible to extra flame damage. If they get close, they'll hit you with a tail attack, so you want to stay as far away as possible. Just make sure you avoid their frost bombs. Scrapper. Scrappers are some of the first robots that will give you a real hard time in Horizon, as they often come in packs and can whittle your health down easily if you're not careful. They'll use a laser attack along with a pounce attack with its saw blade mouth, so make liberal use of the dodge button, and bring your hardpoint arrows or shock weaponry to take out its power cell on its hindquarters or the radar on its back. Red Eye Watcher. These hunks of metal are a tad stronger than ordinary watchers, so you'll need to stay low and quiet to take them out. If you've got the multiple arrow perk, notch up a couple in your bowstring and fire at the eye. Just make sure the question mark above the head doesn't turn into an exclamation mark. A stealthy silent strike is a surefire way to take them out quickly, but make sure you don't get spotted. Broadhead. Broadheads are big, bull-like robots you'll see wandering around once you make it into the more arid lands of Horizon Zero Dawn. They're a bit like grazers. They'll tend not to attack unless disturbed, but they have a blaze canister on its back like the Striders that you can blow up with fire arrows. Or, if you have armour-piercing weapons, you break off its horns to prevent it from charging at you. Lancehorn. Bigger, angrier grazers, these machines have jaws for antlers and aren't afraid to let you know it. You guessed it, aim for these protrusions first to disable their charging attack, and bear in mind that you're probably taking on a handful at a time. Put down traps before attacking to get rid of a couple at once, or use tripwires to stall multiple Lancehorns whilst you take down their buddies. Stealthily killing them one by one from the long grass is your best bet though, as the machines get angry quickly. Trampler. Imagine a charger got really, really angry. That's a trampler. The bisons of the machine world, your priority with these should be shooting their horns so they can't charge at you and then trample you whilst you're staggered. It's likely you're dealing with a whole herd too, so consider using bombs to cause large areas of effect, or a rope caster to tie some of them down whilst you deal with the others. They're not particularly difficult, just make sure you don't get cornered. Shellwalker. If you're feeling benevolent, you can simply fire a couple of arrows at the large claw holding the massive canister to their back. The canister will pop out, you can sprint in and pick it up and then flee. If not, I recommend attacking from behind as much as possible. Their claws make for some devastating frontal attacks, but luckily they're pretty slow. Disable the claws first, then make sure you stay behind it to get the most strikes in with the least risk possible. Fire Bellowback. These big guys are pretty deadly, especially if they hang out with a crowd of other, more nimble beasts. They can charge at you and make a huge dent in your health, but they can also shoot flames out of their mouth from a pretty impressive distance. Use your ice attacks on its body to freeze it, and take out the big cargo sack on its back to take out its flamethrower. It's got a blaze canister under its body if you can get to it, but it's otherwise resistant to flame attacks, so only use fire if you can get a clear shot. Freeze Bellowback. Ugh, these guys, as you'll have guessed it, use frost instead of fire. Frost makes anyone it hits much more susceptible to damage, so you'll understand why this should be avoided unless you want a tricky fight. Like the flame Bellowback, aim first for the giant container of liquid on their back to cause a huge explosion. Fire arrows come in handy here, as frost types are often susceptible to it. Then, don't forget to target the glands either side of its head to take out its spewing frost and death attack. Rockbreaker. The Rockbreaker is a formidable foe, digging its way underground and popping out without warning to try and slice at you with its many buzzsaws. Taking out this guy can turn into a battle of attrition, as you use freeze attacks to slow it down and then follow up with armour-piercing shots to chip away at its digging arms. If you can get a good shot at its fuel sack on its underbelly, you'll do a decent chunk of damage too. Behemoth. These colossal machines hang around in pairs, so, you guessed it, make sure you stay sprinting, rolling, and generally getting out of the way. Tearblast arrows are a must to get rid of their tough armour and expose more of the giant yellow cylinder on their underbelly, which will take huge damage and is the primary thing you want to aim for. They have a devastating charge attack and will thrust their head into the ground and churn up rocks in your direction, so make sure to remain either behind them or to their side when fighting. They're not fast, but they're sure as hell not slow, so it's worth putting down some traps to lure them into, as they won't catch up with you that quickly. Thunderjaw. Thunderjaws will wreck you if you aren't prepared, because these apex predators are not kidding around. They're able to shoot fire, ice, dash in for quick close quarter attacks, attack you from afar with a high-powered disc launcher, are covered in armour plating, and have an enormous health bar. Brilliant. Tearblast arrows are essential, and if you have the perk, fire off 3 at once to cause maximum damage and get rid of some of its armour. Do this thrice and you should be in with the chance of winning. As a top tip, if you can, always fire more than 1 arrow at once, as a single one will do almost nada. And never, ever, ever stop moving. Its attacks will track you, so if you stay still too long, its missiles will seek you out easily. Get round to its side and fire at its bright orange heart, and using frost bombs, which it's especially vulnerable to, will freeze it up and make it soak up more damage. To help even the odds, go for the blaze canisters on its back, or shoot off the disc launcher and pick it up and use it against the beast. Or shoot out the data nexus on the top of its head to cause more damage. A fight with one of these is going to take everything you can muster, so bring your best armour, a ton of health potions, and expert dodging skills. Stormbird. These avian machines won't come to ground very often, so arrows are your only hope here. Use Tearblast ones to get rid of some of its armour before aiming for the frost cannon on its chest, which will be firing area of effect bombs at you, unless you put it out. There's a blaze canister either side of its neck, which should be your next priority, as hitting it will cause high damage indeed. When the Stormbird is briefly on the ground, hit it with some shock bombs to stun it temporarily, then take out the orange canisters on its wings to make sure it can't return to the air. Using a rope caster will tie it to the ground for a few precious seconds, and let you get a couple more hits in, so stock up on ropes. The Stormbird is a tricky fight, so consider investing in the Ossaram Arrowbreaker armour to reduce the damage you'll take from ranged attacks. Deathbringer. These guys aren't actually as deadly as the name implies, as long as you know how to take them out. Their body is weak against fire and shock attacks, so wear it down with a few elemental blasts, and once it's weakened, it'll expose its squishier orange bits. Use your strongest armour-piercing arrows and aim for anything that glows. Once it's back up and running, repeat the process until it's dead, making sure to roll frequently to keep from getting hit, of course. Corrupted machines. Corrupted machines are essentially deadlier versions of the robots you've already faced. Many of the same tactics apply, but they're stronger, can take more of a beating, and leave trails of red goo around that can suck away your health if you walk in it for too long. The corruption does give them one unifying trait, however: they're all weak against fire. Bring any combustible weapon you can get your hands on and lay into them until they're toast.
PlayStation